Ta-da!
Hello gamers, Matthew here from Grey Army Gaming in Lund, Sweden. For this video, we will be giving you an introduction to the new series that we are starting here at Grey Army Gaming called Battle for the Borderlands. What I'd like to do in this introduction is just give you a sense of what this series will look like, walk you through some of the basic components and elements of it. If you're interested in seeing the narrative introduction to this series, then you can look in a separate video for that. We'll have another video coming out that gives you sort of the narrative backstory. This video is more just the nuts and bolts of how this series will work. What we'll do here now is I just want to maybe walk a little bit through the basic setup of the series, how it will look, the different rules that we're going to be using. We'll say something briefly about the different terrain setups and a little bit about the schedule for the release of videos. As far as the setup goes, this is easily the most ambitious project that we have yet taken upon ourselves here at Grey Army Gaming. We have got in this tournament, in this series, 26 warbands that will be fighting against each other. And the warbands come from 9 different factions. So we're using warbands from Night Goblins, the Dwarves, Skaven, High Elves, Orcs, Empire, Lizardmen, Wood Elves, and Goblins. So there will hopefully be quite a bit of variation here. And even in these different factions, we've even broken it up and had slight variations because we'd have to reuse some of the factions in order to get 26 total warbands. Now if you take a look here at the setup as far as the bracket goes, we have made a two-sided bracket in which we will have each side fight its way to the center where we will have the final match there on the 25th of December, so 25 days of fighting. And we've tried to spread out the factions fairly well, fairly evenly on both of these sides, so that hopefully we will give a fair chance to all of the factions and we'll have a better chance of seeing some variation as we move to the end. The way that this tournament will work is it will be single elimination, so there will be no second chances. If you lose, you are out. And what this means is that the winner will ultimately then be undefeated. So the winner will be our undefeated champion. And we'll just make our way down the bracket, starting on the left and then moving to the right, and then jumping back and forth as we go from each round. So the first round, second round, third round, and so forth. So that is how the setup will look. Hopefully it will run pretty smoothly, but it looks like it has some promise to set up some pretty interesting matches. Let us say something briefly about the rules we will be using in this tournament. As our base foundation rule set, we'll be using the Warhammer Fantasy Rulebook, 8th edition. And this will provide us basically the foundation we're going to use for how to make movement, shooting, and combat. There will be no magic in this tournament. Magic is not allowed, so we're going to skip over that. But everything else is going to basically follow the Warhammer Fantasy 8th edition. In addition to that, we will be using the rule books from the various factions. And so these will also be the 8th edition rule books. So all of the rules, special rules for each faction, will be drawing on these. So there's nothing special there. Now in addition though, we are going to be playing the Regiment of Renown rule set. And basically Regiment of Renown was an event pack that Warhammer World released a few years ago, in which they played a tournament based on this set of rules. And there's some interesting variations and things that you need to have here when you're playing these small warband skirmish games. And we can mention a few of them right now. First of all, when you are putting together our force, each of our groups has a maximum of 100 points. So a maximum of 100 points. And what we have said here is we've limited the amount of artillery weapons to 25%. So you can't have more than 25% that shoot. That would just make it too unfair if you just brought all weapons and sat back and just shot arrows the whole time. So 25% artillery weapons, and also we have limited it to maximum of 20 models because we don't want to have 30, 40, 50 models. Some of these cheaper models are just running over and just swarming the other forces. So 20 models total, and no lords or heroes, keeping it pretty simple, and no more than 3 wounds on your figurines. So if you have a leader who is having 3 wounds and he gets upgraded, he cannot take more wounds, maximum 3 wounds. We don't want to have a single model be so way overpowered that he or she can just destroy the other forces. Now, in addition to that, you are also given the option of having 3 dogs of war, as it's called. And these are special models in your unit. Now, what the dogs of war, what's interesting with them is they get each of them gets the option to take along a specific kit. Now, what the kit is are different options for weapons, or different options for ammunition, different weapons for armor or cloaks or things like that, which give your dog of war just a little bit of extra specialness and extra boost when they enter the combat. I went ahead and made kit cards out of this page, and so what I'll be doing is I will be assigning kit cards to the dogs of war, so we'll know very clearly who's the dog of war in our specific war band. You can also give 1 piece of kit to your leader, and sometimes we'll do that as well. Your leader, of course, gets an extra wound in order to show that your leader is someone special, so the leader will already stick out quite a bit. At the end of each game, we are going to go ahead and take the winning warband, and the leader will then roll on a chart to see what kind of upgrades that he or she gets to take with to the next battle. So essentially, this is like Mordheim in a sense. We're going to be building up on experience and skill as we play, so that as you come to the final game, your leader should be pretty strong and pretty powerful. A couple of examples here. Every time we'll roll a 2d6 and add the number of wounds from the battle, or excuse me, kills that the leader inflicted. So for example, if you roll a 10, lightning reflexes, your leader gains either +1 movement or +1 initiative. 13, a living legend, your leader gains either +1 wound, +1 attack, +1 strength, or +1 toughness. So this will be fun because it'll show a little bit of development and growth as our leaders walk their way through their battles in the Borderlands. One more thing we should mention here is that when we're dealing with the specific scenarios, what we're going to do is be playing the scenario that they have called Not One Step Back. And what is interesting with this scenario is that we basically will set out on a 4x4 battlefield, and we'll roll like normal for deployment and for first turn. And what we'll do here is we'll play a maximum of 6 rounds. And if we get to 6 rounds, at the end of the sixth round, the 6th game turn, we will count up victory points and determine the winner that way. Otherwise, the way that we determine who wins is either, of course, one warband wipes out the other completely. That means that warband that did the wiping out would be the winner. Otherwise, we have what happens more often is there will be a routing that occurs. Now, what happens is that when your warband drops to less than 50% of what it began with, on its next turn, the beginning of its next turn, it has to take a leadership test on the highest leadership in the warband. If it fails that leadership test, it then routes and the rest of the warband leave the battlefield, which means that the remaining warband will then be victorious. Here's a couple more special rules that we have in this scenario. Every man for himself. That means that each model is treated as an individual unit. So we'll treat models as units. They're everywhere. Every model has a 360-degree line of sight for all purposes, shooting, declaring charges. So you don't have to worry about exactly the angles that you're looking at the people you're charging or shooting. They're counting on us, so only wounds caused in combat count towards combat resolution. Get back in the fight. Buildings are impassable. We cannot enter buildings. There's no safe haven. All forests are mysterious, so we'll have to roll for those. Here and now, this means that all of your models have to start on the board. You can't use special deployment rules such that miners have, ambushers, things like that. And then the routing test, this is what I already mentioned, that we take a route test if you get below 50%. And yeah, that's all that will be relevant for our warbands. So this is kind of like Mordheim in some sense, but it's a little more simplistic, using the simple rules of Regiment of Renown, and based upon the 8th edition rulebook and the 8th edition army books. Allow me to make one final point concerning rules. Now, as I mentioned, we have had 26 different warbands from 9 different factions. We're drawing on the rules from the 8th edition fantasy. We're drawing on 9 different army books from the 8th edition armies. And we're also drawing on the Regiment of Renown rule pack. Now, this is a lot to keep in mind, and there's a lot swirling around in each and every battle that we brought to the table. And also, as you noticed, we did lightning battles. We did things very, very quickly. I think I filmed most of these in the course of 3 days. And so you can imagine the lightning speed pace in which we did this. All of this together means that it was very easy at certain times to make certain rules errors. And I know that in each and every battle there was most likely something that we did wrong. Now, with that said, I would just like to ask you for your grace as you watch these shows, not to be too disheartened by any of the rule errors. Some of them I caught and was able to correct, other ones I probably haven't even noticed. But please, I hope that you were able now to watch these battles and to be able to bracket out those rule errors and to still be able to enjoy the battles for what they are. 26 warbands coming together on the battlefield and fighting it out to see who will be the victor. A brief word now about terrain. In this series now, in this tournament, we have 5 general themes that we are using with our terrain. First of all, we have the grassland mat theme, which is more of a natural theme. The second one is the desert theme, which will be much more desolate, a lot of rocks, not much life. The third one will be the ice and snow, something of the northern regions of the borderlands. And very often that will also be quite desolate. There may be some ruins and some villages there. The fourth one, we will have the worn path, or the patches, grassy patches area. And this will be more often where we'll have our villages. So we will set up villages. Here there will be more life, less destroyed and ruined buildings, and more buildings that are intact. And the fifth one will be the ancient city theme with our cobblestone and a lot of ruins. So those are the 5 different general themes that we'll be using as we go through these. And we will cycle through all 5 of them one at a time. So we'll go through that cycle 5 times in our 25 matches. And so hopefully that will keep things interesting. So every single day, every single day will be a different theme. Now, on each of these 5 themes, we have each day we set up a unique setup. So there will essentially be 25 unique terrain setups for this tournament, one for each day. So even if you're not interested in the gameplay, if you're not interested in watching how the matches go between these different factions, it still might be interesting for you. You might find it interesting to take a look at the different terrain setups that we have each day. So take a look at that. It'll be exciting to see what we can come up with as we put together these different terrain setups for each day. Allow me now to bring this introduction to a close by mentioning something briefly about scheduling. Starting on December 1st, we will be uploading the first battle, the first day, and we will then be releasing one video each and every day until our last video, which will be on December 25th. So you can expect one video each and every day all the way up to December 25th. The times for this, I will be hopefully shooting to release these at 7 a.m. Swedish time, which if you're in North America would be midnight Central Time in the Central Time Zone. So that should be early enough that when you wake up in the morning, you'll have the battle ready to go for the day. Yeah, that's about all we need to say about scheduling. I look forward to seeing you joining us as we go through these 25 days of battles. And it will be hopefully pretty exciting, and there will be a lot going on. So thank you for coming back and for watching. Thank you for commenting. Thank you for participating with us in this exciting new series. And most of all, thank you for joining us here today at Gray Army Gaming, where Gray can always play.